Story 1, a stranger picked me up on the side of the road. And she wasn't planning to let me go. Writing. The night he disappeared from his old life, the rain was coming down so hard that the road looked like a river. Daniel stood alone beneath a broken streetlight, soaked through, carrying nothing except a worn backpack and a photograph he couldn't bring himself to throw away. He had no money, no working phone, and nowhere to sleep. Then a black sedan slowed beside him. A woman lowered the window and looked at him for several seconds before asking if he needed help. Daniel hesitated. Every instinct told him not to trust a stranger on an empty road after midnight. But he had no idea that getting into that car would change his life forever, and that the woman behind the wheel had no intention of simply dropping him somewhere and driving away. Daniel had spent the previous 6 months watching his life fall apart piece by piece. He had lost his job after the small construction company he worked for closed unexpectedly. His father had passed away the year before, leaving behind debts instead of savings, and Daniel had been quietly trying to help his mother with everything he earned. When his mother finally moved in with Daniel's aunt in another city because the bills had become impossible, Daniel believed things could still get better. Then came the final blow. The apartment owner sold the building, and Daniel had 3 days to leave. He packed what little he owned, sold his old bicycle for enough money to buy a bus ticket, and headed toward a city where he hoped to find work. But the bus broke down miles from his destination, and after waiting for hours, Daniel realized he had no way to continue. So he started walking. If you believe that kindness can find us even on the darkest roads, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes one small act of kindness can become the beginning of an entirely different life. The woman in the sedan introduced herself as Elena. She looked to be in her early 40s, dressed simply despite the expensive car, with tired eyes that suggested she had been carrying her own burdens for a long time. She told Daniel she had noticed him nearly 20 minutes earlier but had driven past because she was afraid to stop. Then she turned around because she couldn't shake the feeling that she had made the wrong choice. Daniel accepted a ride, but only after asking her to take him to a nearby public station. Elena agreed, yet when they reached the station, she noticed that Daniel had nowhere to go. He tried to hide it, saying he would figure something out. Elena didn't believe him. Instead of leaving him there, she drove him to a small guest house she owned. Daniel was confused when she explained that she had purchased the place years earlier and kept several rooms available for people who needed temporary shelter. He refused at first, worried that accepting help would make him feel weak. Elena simply told him that needing help for a short time didn't make anyone weak. It meant they were human. She gave him a clean room, a meal, and a promise that he wouldn't be pressured to repay her. The next morning, Daniel discovered that Elena wasn't merely a wealthy woman with a guest house. She ran a small foundation that helped unemployed workers learn trades and find new jobs. She offered him a position repairing furniture at one of the foundation's workshops. Daniel accepted because he desperately needed the work, but he remained suspicious of her generosity. He expected conditions to appear eventually. They didn't. Days became weeks. Daniel worked harder than anyone else, arriving early and staying late. He repaired broken chairs, painted old tables, and helped teach young people who had dropped out of school. Slowly, something inside him began to change. He stopped looking at every kindness as a debt. He started believing that perhaps some people really did help without expecting anything in return. But Elena had her own secret. One evening, Daniel found her sitting alone in the workshop after everyone had left. She was holding an old photograph. It showed a young man standing beside her outside a small repair shop. Daniel recognized the sadness in her expression because he had seen it in the mirror many times. Elena eventually explained that the young man was her younger brother, who had died years earlier after losing his job and becoming homeless. She had spent years wondering whether she could have done something differently. That was why she had built the foundation. She couldn't save him, but she could try to make sure someone else didn't disappear simply because life became too difficult. Suddenly Daniel understood why she had turned her car around that rainy night. Months passed. Daniel became one of the Foundation's most trusted workers. He helped dozens of people, and eventually he was offered the chance to manage one of the workshops himself. For the first time in years, he had an apartment, a steady income, and enough money to visit his mother without feeling ashamed of what he had become. Then Elena made a decision that shocked him. She told Daniel she was selling the guest house and using the money to expand the Foundation into 3 neighboring cities. Daniel worried that the place that had saved him would disappear. Elena smiled and explained that the building had never been the important part. The people were. On the anniversary of that rainy night, Daniel returned to the exact roadside where Elena had found him. He brought a small wooden plaque he had made himself. It carried only one sentence: "Sometimes the person who stops for you on the road isn't rescuing you from the journey. They're reminding you that you can keep going." Elena stood beside him as he placed the plaque near the old streetlight. Daniel told her that when she stopped that night, she had thought she was helping a stranger. But she had actually reminded him that his life still had value. Near the end of the video, if this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach people who may need a reminder that kindness still exists. And before we end, leave this special comment: someone turned around for me. Maybe someone reading your words today will remember that they can turn around for somebody else, too. Daniel never forgot that rainy road. He never forgot the woman who stopped when everyone else kept driving. And Elena never forgot the lesson her brother had unknowingly left behind. Sometimes we imagine that life changes through enormous miracles, but sometimes it happens quietly. Sometimes it is simply a car slowing down in the rain, a stranger opening a door, a warm meal, or one person saying, through their actions, that you don't have to face everything alone. Daniel had stepped into Elena's car believing he was only looking for a ride. He stepped out months later with something far more valuable: a second chance, a purpose, and the courage to become the person who would someday stop for someone else.